I think the experience and case studies and examples from North America, from the UK, elsewhere in Europe, I think they're incredibly important to adapting to a Bulgarian culture or any other culture for that matter. There's no sense to reinvent the wheel, if you will. But you need to adapt, and adapt is the key word. You have to be flexible. You can't assume that something works, but at the same time, it's not fair to assume that something does not work. So you talk with people, you talk to colleagues and see what do you think of this, or how is wealth discussed in Bulgaria, or as I learned recently about the Netherlands, that peers don't talk to each other about wealth. They don't know who has a lot of money and who does not. So doing a screening and rating process where you ask peers of can you tell us how much they could give, may not be helpful to do in the Netherlands. But yet the process of finding out more about your prospect is important. So you find ways culturally that are appropriate. But ultimately it comes down to the point that your university is a not-for-profit, whether it's in Bulgaria, for the most part, whether it's in Bulgaria, United States, or the Netherlands. And you're a charity, which means you're allowed to ask for gifts, you're allowed to receive gifts, which means you should ask for gifts, and you shouldn't be embarrassed to ask for gifts. As long as you do it within cultural norms. Maybe you don't go flat out and asking for a specific amount because that's inappropriate, but you can do have a softer conversation. You still have to know more about the donor, whether you do it through Google or whether you talk with peers or some other appropriate and legal matter that you can work with within privacy laws of any given country. And you need to find out what's interesting to them. And you can't do that without talking with them. But finding out, are they interested in supporting a university in the first place? Do they have any philanthropic interest in general? And then encouraging those, because ultimately, I think the sheer math works out that if you can be in the top 3 when somebody's deciding to make gifts, on average, you get about a third of those gifts that you may not have before. And finally, if you do ask, when you make gifts, just like in North America, you have to make them feel good about that investment. You have to steward them appropriately, make sure they know what's going on, what we're using the money for, and in general keeping them happy, because that also will encourage them to continue supporting. So in general, I think the main methods are the same. You just tweak them in whatever direction you need to go, depending on where you are and of course who you're speaking with. It's all individual strategies.